All right, readers. Those clocks, they are striking 13, so let us begin. All right, this week, going to take another little break from the novel. I know we've been a little bit too focused on the novel here, but it's what we dream of as readers and writers. Writing that great American novel. The novel. I've given my best go at it, but for me, I pulled a Kafka and just burnt that shit, so no human eyes ever had to read that trash. But every once in a while, you gotta take a break from reading a novel. Like a couple weeks ago, when I did the stage play Major Barbara by George Bernard Shaw. You gotta look at the other things that writing does for us. And as readers, it's a nice break. So this week, I'm gonna be talking about some short stories and even some poetry. I probably diss poetry in a couple of these because I don't like poetry. I'm a dude. I don't care for the flowery nature of it. But besides the poetry, screw that. Mainly the focus of today is the short story. The poems that I'm going to be looking at, they lead to the short stories, but the short story, the oft-forgotten little brother of the novel, but almost a better version. A true short story, you should be able to sit down and read it in one sitting. So for me, it's something you could read in a half hour or less. And to start, I'm not just starting anywhere, folks. Kind of like the first one of these I did was Huck Finn, because it's the great American novel. So, thusly, I'm going to be starting with the greatest short story, the greatest short story ever written, and it is The Masque of the Red Death by one Edgar Allan Poe. Now, often, or maybe not often, I don't know if I've ever said it, but often I think, the tailor doesn't matter. It's only the tale that matters. Only what the written word is. That's all as readers that's all we should be worried about. But with Edgar Allan Poe, just because I like to introduce the shit, Edgar was a great writer, great poet, great American. Well, actually, no, he was a pretty shitty American and shitty human being. For those who don't know, we just know him from his macabre writing style. Macabre? It doesn't matter. Fuck it. He wrote gruesome, gory shit. That's what that word means. He was the forefather, and after that you got H.G. Lovecraft, you got Robert E. Howard, and in recent history we got the greatest writer of our generation, Stephen King. All of those write those kind of horror tales. But even as the father of it, you know, he had the Bram Stokers, the Mary Shelleys, they all came before him. So as always, the writing, it comes from somewhere. But Edgar Allan was known for this dark storytelling ability. And he was good at it. It's because he led a dark, dirty life. I mean, this is a man, he got kicked out of the army just to go to West Point. And when he got to West Point, he got court-martialed. This is after he went to college and got kicked out over gambling debts. And after fucking up in all those arenas, he married his cousin. Not a second or third cousin, a first cousin. Like his dad's sister's kid or his mom's brother's kid. A first cousin. He married her. I think they had kids. I hope that offspring still ain't going today. Oh yeah, and she was 13 years old. Still was a fucking weirdo. I mean, it was a lot more common back then. We as Americans had to populate this huge fucking land. And so Edgar did his part. He just knocked up a couple family members. Then got drunk. Did some writing. Did some critiquing. He's really known as a critic. Well, that's just because he had to pay his booze bills. Ugh. He was a fuck up of a human being, y'all. But the tailor doesn't matter. Only the tale matters. And his tales are beautifully written pieces. Even his poetry. And that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at two of his poems. We're going to look at The Bells and probably his most famous work ever, The Raven. They're both good. It makes me want to go back in time and kick my college professors in the shins. They tell you can't rhyme your poetry. Oh, fuck you. You can, and Edgar did it well. He had a rhyme scheme. He kept a rhythm to it. It's beautifully done, even for someone like me who doesn't like poetry. And then his short stories. We're going to look at, I'd say his most famous is The Telltale Heart. And it's good. But for me, the greatest short story that I've ever read in my life. I mean, when I was reading it, I thought I was half asleep. Then I got to the end and thought, holy fuck balls, this is great. And that is The Masque of the Red Death. I don't know why it's not more famous than it is. People I talk to have read it are like, oh yeah, best short story I've ever written. Yeah, none of us have written anything that good. Best short story I've ever read. They agree. I mean, there's maybe The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and I'm a King fanatic. He's written a ton of great short stories. So has Vonnegut, so has Hemingway. They all wrote short stories. All these people we know as novelists. It's why you can't start out as a novelist. You got to learn how to write a short tale, and then the long tale the novel can follow. It's not how we think of writers. We think of the novel, that great American novel. But we need to think more of the great American short story. This is the greatest we've ever produced. We can still produce better, y'all. So we're going to dive into all 4 of those works coming up next, right after a quick word from one of our fine sponsors. Today's book report is brought to you by Bird Hunters. Bird Hunters, we here at the book report praise you. Don't let these terrors of the skies befell any more terror upon humanity. Bring them winged rats down. I don't even care if you eat them. Looks like bad eating to me. Gotta be a little bit of meat on those bones. If you do, good for you. If not, just go home with that giddy, happy feeling inside that you brought down a winged menace that at any time could swoop down and claw us or our children. I don't care if it's a golden eagle, the symbol of America. Shoot that fucking thing down. Did you guys see what it did to that deer on YouTube? An eagle killed a deer. These things are menaces. Menaces! Nevermore shall these winged savages brutality us from the skies above. We're scared of drones, right? Why not winged natural drones? These things fly around with claws, beaks. In movies, do you think it's any wonder that birds are circling a killing field? Or that when some guy's hung to death or hung on a cross, they're standing on his shoulders pecking out his eyes? Our eyes are nothing but plump, juicy grapes to these winged beasts. So kill them! Kill them all! It's generally done with a dog, so if you're a dog owner and or lover, like almost everyone, take your dog. Have an afternoon with your pet. I don't give a fuck what you do. Just kill some fucking birds. Bird hunters. Thank you. And if you know a bird hunter, get over there right now and thank him or her today. Hither sledges with the bells, silver bells, what a world of merriment their melody foretells. How they tinkle, tinkle, tinkle in the icy air of night, while the stars that oversprinkle all the heavens seem to twinkle with a crystalline delight. Keeping time, time, time in a sort of runic rhyme, to the tintinnabulation that so musically wells from the bells, 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 from the jingling and the tinkling of the bells. Yeah, guys. Excuse me. I hate some poetry. But this is what poetry's supposed to be. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to rhyme like this. It's supposed to have a scheme. You're supposed to read it out loud. You're not supposed to sit and study over it. Well, if you're the author, sure. You gotta sit there and think of the scheme. The madman, cousin fucking genius it took to write this is insane to even ponder. Alright, so obviously I didn't give no intro here. Well, I gave the intro, but I didn't set that up. I just started reading. Apologies. This is the first of the 2 poems I'm going to look at. This one is The Bells. It's probably my second favorite poem of his. Well, because as a kid, before I discovered Poe, really the only poetries I liked that they taught in school were by William Blake. And fans of reading, or especially poetry, will remember William Blake was famous for his book of poetry, Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience. Now, the only reason I bring it up, I'm not trying to divert any attention away from Poe, is that this poem, The Bells, reminds me of that. What I just read to start this segment, whatever the hell you want to call it, it's the first chapter, if you will. Shit, that's bad for a book show. I forget what it's called. The first verse? The first part of the poem. That's how it starts out. Oh, hopeful and happy. The Bells is the songs of experience or innocence and experience all rolled up into one. With Blake's book, you got the innocent poems in the first half and the experience kind of downtrodden poems in the second half. The Bells, it starts out hopeful, full of joy. And then by the end, it's just all melancholy and broken. But from just that little segment I've read, did you see the rhyme? The repetition? The beat? It's alive. It's great. These are just words on paper. Yet when you read them aloud, it has its own life. It's got a song to it. And so in all my creative writing classes, when I was told, don't rhyme, just write poetry, but don't rhyme, it doesn't make sense to me. This is what good poetry is, and that's what it does. It keeps a rhythm, even if it's repetition. For what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 straight words are bells. And guess what? It works. It works beautifully. And then it just keeps beating out. Like I said in the introduction, with a lot of writers, I just talk about theme and what they do with their prose. With Poe, it's all about rhythm and beat, especially even his short stories. It's all about that rhythm. It's about taking the reader, getting them uplifted, taking them down, slowing down that heart rate, bringing them back into it with a thunderous thing. Like with the bells here. It starts out so joyful and hopeful. The end of it, oh shit. Keeping time in a sort of runic rhyme to the throbbing of the bells, bells, to the sobbing of the bells. Keeping time as he knells, in a happy runic rhyme to the rolling of the bells, to the tolling of the bells, to the moaning and the groaning of the bells. Ugh. Ruffles my voice up reading poetry. Voice ain't used to it and don't like it. But no, of course I read it grim and gritty. But I mean, that's how it comes off the page. I mean, he talks about ghouls and rusted iron bells. It takes a much darker turn at the end. Well, I mean, darkness is what Poe was known for. But this poem to me, it's like a young man. You know, that hopeful young man going out. He's going to make it in this world. He's all full of hope. Just happy. Then you see him at the end and life's beat him down and he's all cynical as shit and cursing the world and telling other young men never hope. It's worthless. It's hopeless out there. Anyway, check out that poem. It's very good, but of course, the only poem that matters when you talk about, well, not the only one, but the most famous poem, I would argue, in the world, definitely in the English language, is The Raven, Poe's masterpiece. To others, for me, it's The Masque of the Red Death. To each their own, guys. But his most known masterpiece is The Raven. And I don't know what to say that hasn't already been said. We're familiar with it from cartoons at Halloween time. At least that's how I was first introduced to it as a kid. I just thought it was a kid's show. But no, it's a 3-page poem. Maybe 4? 1, 2, 3. No, 3. 3 pages of this same little simple rhyme scheme. What is it of? Shit. A, B, C, B, B, B? Is that right? Yeah. A, B, C, B, B, B. Yeah. You see that? A rhyme scheme, college professors. It's beautiful. Doesn't matter how many times he says more. They all end in more, Lenore. But even that rhyme and repetition, it works. It works so beautifully. The thing about the poem, the poem The Raven, is its beat. I mean, as you read The Raven, you can't help but turn sing-songy. I dare you. Read it monotone. You can't. You catch the rhythm of the verse as he wrote it. The words are so perfectly chosen to keep that beat up with the reader's eye. The reader's eye as it goes through it. You get into it. It's just, man, it's just beat, 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 rhyme and repeat, beat, 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 rhyme and repeat, beat, 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 beat. It's really the perfect poem. Makes me feel gay just saying it. It's a perfect poem, but it is. That's why Poe's known for it, guys. He's great. Now, if you get on YouTube, you can find the likes of Christopher Walken, James Earl Jones, Christopher Lee, all these famous voice actors doing their own versions of The Raven. And they're all good in their own way. But I listened to them after I read it, and to me it felt like they did it wrong. Because to me in the beginning, this is a calm poem. Just once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore. and on and on and on. But you know, it's just a nice slow. They do that. They do it nice, just slow. But as it goes, this guy's going mad, guys. This guy's going insane. So to me, the pace of every verse just kept quickening so that halfway through, but the raving sitting lonely on that placid bus spoke only that one word as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. It just kept with every verse. Got faster and faster, and like I said, just beat, 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 rhyme and repeat, beat, 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 beat. It builds until what I found most wrong with all these celebrities guys doing it was at the end. They had kind of the same tone as in the beginning. Whereas when I read it, it's like a mad lunatic escaping asylum, tearing his hair out, just, and the raven never fleeting, still is sitting on the pallid buster palace, just above my chamber door. Ugh, that fucking hurt. Shit, but you get the idea. Just, it's insane the way the poem works out and tells you a story. A story is told through these rhyming, silly words. But it works. It works to perfection. That's why we remember Mr. Edgar Allan. Alright, I gotta cut this little segment a little bit short. Possibly because screaming out 2 lines of a poem, I feel like I threw my larynx out. And also, I can't talk about poetry any longer, or I feel like my balls are gonna pack up and leave me. So we're gonna go to break just a couple minutes early. We'll be back, guys. The greatest short story ever written, Masque of the Red Death, coming up next. The following is another public service announcement brought to you by the Book Report. Hey guys, I know it's easy to want to emulate, to worship our heroes, those wizened sages of old, the writers. In the case of Poe, don't fuck your cousins. Look, as writers, we can all agree there's way too many retards in the world. So don't fuck your cousin. Don't invite more retardation into the world. Mistakes happen. Sure, she looked good to you growing up, but let it go. There's more women out there. Don't give up on the fair species just yet. Find you a new gal out there that doesn't have the same blood as you. Don't create more tards, and don't fuck family. Thank you. Alright guys, so I mentioned some Telltale Heart. Screw that, there's not going to be any time. We will not be doing the Telltale Heart. But for those of you who know it, it's good. But today, we're not dealing with good. We're not even dealing with better. We're going to deal with the best. The best fucking short story ever written. Now this is going to vary for others. Of course it will. It's like the speed limit when you're in your car and you think you're driving fast, but the people behind you are on your ass and you think they're assholes. No. You're not going fast. You're going fast for you. That's faster, which is just fast for them. So best for me may not be the best for you. It depends on your point of mind. For me, a short story is something I read between novels because I want to keep reading short stories. I don't want it to become the forgotten art that it has the most. And as much as I bitch about Melville's Moby Dick, Melville's collection of short stories, quite good. Same with Jeanette Winterson, of course, Stephen King's. Lovecraft, all he wrote was basically short stories and novellas. Hemingway's great. Kurt Vonnegut's weird and good. It shows where he got his start. The point is, check out short stories, guys. And if you want the best, start here. Edgar Allan Poe's The Masque of the Red Death. How simple can it be? Without trying, now this was on the second turn when I was doing a little bit of research for this little show. I was able to read The Masque of the Red Death in 10 minutes and 36 seconds. That's it. How much time do you spend staring at the computer doing nothing? Staring at another boring-ass sitcom rerun. Basically doing nothing. You could really watch 2 sitcoms, and in the commercial breaks of those 2, read this short story. Well, I say that, but it's not true because halfway into the book, you're going to quit paying attention to that stupid fucking sitcom and you're going to be enticed. You're going to want to read this story. It's a weird story. Nothing much happens. It's about the Count, the Duke. It doesn't matter. It's about Prospero. Edgar Allan is not trying to hide anything. The prince, that's what he is. He's the prince of the land. He is Prince Prospero. No play on prosperous there. But Prince Prospero, his country, their population gets cut in half by the Red Death. And the Red Death, it's nothing to mess with. You bleed from your pores until you have a seizure and you die. Anyone who has had zits, so anyone over 13 knows that pores are everywhere. So you bleed out of everywhere. Until from blood loss you have a seizure and you die. Generally, the victims of the Red Death die within a half an hour. So what does Prospero do? He doesn't try to cure the ailments of his land. Fuck that. He takes 1,000 of his knights, his dancers, his entertainers, and his noblemen, and he disappears into the countryside, into, I don't know, his country estate with these giant walls to keep the common folk, the diseased folk, out. As we talked about with George Bernard Shaw, he would have saw this as a smart move by the rich. Get away from the infectious poor people. They're the ones carrying disease and poverty. Get them away! Go hide out. Have some fun. That's what the rich people here in this short story do. They go. And Prospero entertains them. They seclude themselves for up to 6 months. It says 5 or 6 months. It's not even clear to Poe. He knows it's been a long-ass time since they saw any poor people, since they even feared sickness or death. Kind of the point of it. These people are so rich, they don't fear sickness or death or poverty. They remove themselves from such earthly worries. All they're worried about is having a party, a masquerade ball. Back in the day, the height of just frivolity and of, not deception, of, I don't know, like the Caesars of old used to do, of, shit, the word's escaping me. Anyway, they're worried about sexing it up, eating and drinking the night away. And so that's what they do, while entertained by, the singers and the dancers and all the entertainers of the land. Like if the rich people paid all the movie stars to come and put on private productions and plays for them while they threw little nuts and apples at them. Dance, monkey, dance! That's what Prospero and his noblemen do. And it gets kind of weird here once they're done with seclusion. On the night of the great masquerade ball, he divides his apartments up into 7 apartments. Each has its own light frame. There's like a blue apartment, a yellow apartment, but the 7th is red. It's more of a black. It's red-black like blood. No one goes into that apartment. It's kind of creepy. It's kind of too creepy for the frivolous, just lighthearted mood of this event. These people are remembering that they're rich. They're partying down. They don't have any earthly worries or concerns. And then, the only reason I talked about poetry earlier was just to give you some background into Poe. He was a poet, so he knew rhythm. So he did the same thing with his prose. First half of this book. First half of this story, boring, guys. That's why this thing struck me in my mood like it did the first time I read it. Just another boring short story. Nothing special here. Nothing special, just a story. Rich dude, his friends, they seclude themselves from the poor. Who cares? Then it slowly starts to pick up a little bit. When Poe starts to describe the dress of the people. Then it moves on to the orchestra, playing for the people. Just kind of moving on. Then you remember beat, 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 rhyme and repeat, beat, beat, beat. Every hour, on the hour, the clock strikes. And all the guests, they pause. They look around. It gets kind of uncomfortable. The orchestra stops playing. It's just silence, except for the beating of the clock. You know, one for every hour. Just boom, boom, boom. Nothing else is happening. Boom, boom. And when the clock gets done striking, orchestra picks back up, party picks back up, and everybody just kind of laughs at themselves. How silly. Fuck what we worried about. We're rich. We're removed from worries. Keeps happening every hour. Just pause. No music. Boom, boom, boom. Then midnight. Of course midnight. It's a Poe story. It's dark. Midnight comes. How does he describe it? It's not the little kind of giddyish, little bit of fear that they were experiencing, the clock strikes 12. It's 12 strokes of fear. For in through the crowd, just wearing, he's in masquerade, but his costume is different. It's different. He's coming out of that red-black chamber, wearing a mask of blood like a skull. The Red Death has arrived. He takes Prospero, takes him in to that red-black chamber. Prospero's done. The host, the king, the prince, he's fallen. Then all the people attending the party, they're going to strike down this death. They're going to beat death. But as they go in there, they fall one by one. And as the 12 strokes of midnight cease, the clock stops, the fires go out, and death stands firm above all. And that's it. It's fucking beautiful, guys. It took me so unawares. This simple little story about rich folk repeating away from the poor, repeating away from the ones they're really sworn to protect as the noble people of the land. They take the entertainers, they take all the joy of life with them into seclusion, and they hide there for months, happily removed. Death finds all. Oh, it gave me shivers. I couldn't believe it. If you never really read the book, you shouldn't have listened to me talk about it. Probably could have ruined it for you. Just death stands firm. Ugh, still gives me shivers. But the thing is, when I reread it in that 10 minutes and 36 seconds, it didn't hit me the same way. That's the thing about the best. For something to be the best, it has to hit you in a mood, in a moment, when you're ready to receive it. If I hadn't been just sitting on my couch bored, and really halfway bored with the story, thinking nothing of it. You know how when you read and your mind just kind of wonders where it will, not even thinking about what you're reading about? And then all of a sudden it brought me back in. Because of his rhythm, of his repeating. It's what Poe does best. That's how he gets people into it. God damn it, poetry, you're important here. And why? Because without the poetical language, without him knowing that rhyme structure, it wouldn't have floated over into his sentence structure of his prose, into his paragraphs, into his pages, into his short stories. It's why Poe is known. I mean, you can pick up a copy of Poe complete. All his poems, all of his short stories. Excuse me. You can pick up an entire one volume of everything he ever wrote for like $10, 20 tops. And you get all these wonderful short stories and poems, and it's nice how when you read one, you can kind of see the construction pieces of the other. How you just take these little tools out of your little wordsmithy. And just from the one, you can start building another and another and another till it's more complex. And I don't know. It's getting into the workshopping of a story, and it's impossible. But when talking about Poe, this is my favorite short story ever, of course, and I couldn't talk about it without bringing him up as a poet, without really even wanting to. Again, I don't like poetry. It's not my bread and butter. But without that poetical background, Poe couldn't have done this. He couldn't have wrote what, for me, is the greatest short story ever written. I mean, I carry it with me every day of my life. It's a good lesson for humans. Try to separate yourself from the earthly woes. Death stands firm. It's pretty, guys. I hope one day y'all get to check it out. You may just enjoy it. You know what? You should all read it. You may just enjoy it more than me.